Today we are speaking to Dena Lewis, who is running for resilience and safety. This episode has been marked as explicit. Please be aware that the topic of assault comes up during this conversation. While we don't discuss it in detail, some listeners may find it triggering. Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl Podcast, a 3-time award-winning show that aims to motivate and inspire you while increasing the amount of female role models in the media, especially in relation to adventure and physical challenges. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. If you're passionate about adventure, challenge and learning from women who have overcome obstacles and achieved remarkable things, then this is the podcast for you. Every Tuesday at 7 a.m, new episodes go live featuring incredible women who share their stories, insights and tips to help you achieve your dreams and goals. You can support the Tough Girl mission by signing up as a patron. Visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Keep listening until the very end as I share more information about what's going on with me with Tough Girl Challenges, give shout outs and recommend other Tough Girl Podcast episodes. More information can be found at toughgirlchallenges.com.
I am based in Florida. I'm in the U.S., kind of lived all over the U.S. in my years of growing up and professionally, but I have been a runner for about 20 years. I started ultramarathon running about 10 years ago. I am the mom to 2 amazing kids. I've got one in college and one actually on the way. She graduates this year. She is going to be playing sand volleyball in college, and we're super proud of her. Married to my best friend. I've been in medical device sales pretty much all of my career. I've always been in sales management and within the healthcare space. So that's a little bit about me.
You know, you've been running for like the past sort of 20 years or so. How did you get into running? Was that something that you did through school and college, or were your family sporty and active and outdoorsy?
So I was pretty active in high school and college. I did do various things, gymnastics, cheering, stuff like that. But I did not really take up running until I got out of college. And for me, it was because I did jump right into a pretty high stress job, being in med device. And I was looking for ways to kind of deal with my stress and have outlets for it. I did a lot of aerobics. At the time, aerobics was popular. It just goes to show how old I am. You know, gym, stuff like that, classes. And I really just couldn't find anything that was giving me that kind of mental stability that I was looking for until I started running. Once I started running, then I started cycling. I decided I was going to, you know, as most runners do, I started the journey of, let's do a 5K. And then from there, that turned into a 10K. A half marathon, a marathon, and then I've done 2 triathlons, and then I've done 2 ultras. So it's just progressed over the years for me, but it's always been rooted in the same thing. Running for me is my mental stability. It's my health, my fitness, my well-being. It just helps me kind of keep my sanity, so to speak. And even over the course of my kids' lives, when they were babies, I would put them in the stroller and they'd go with mom. So it's just been part of my life for as long as I can remember.
And have you ever worked with like a run coach or joined a run club? How have you trained yourself? You know, have you just, or is it just gone on the internet, Googled how to train for a 5K? You know, what did that look like in terms of training?
Yeah. So for the 5K specifically, that was just motivation and research. I just, you know, again, for me, it started out as something kind of fun. I wasn't concerned about hitting a PR, running faster than anybody else, winning in my age group. You know, none of those things were super important to me when I began. It was just being able to put one foot in front of the other and finish. And so over the course of the years, I have done some run clubs. I've had a little bit of coaching, but I think again, as time has progressed, I've learned what works for me. I know a lot of people, you know, they do strongly believe in coaches and I think they bring a ton of value. But for me, I feel like no one knows me better than I know myself. And so what motivates me food wise, diet wise, sleep, you know, when I run best, when I'm running my fastest, I do try to change elevations from time to time, travel, you know, like say out west. But for the most part, a lot of it has been self-taught. And then through some guidance I've gotten through different run clubs. The other thing with run clubs I have found is that and a caveat into running mate a little bit, which we can go into further more, but it just was never on my time. Coming out of device, I would have to be in the operating room super early in the morning. And by the time the day was over, after being in cases all day, the last thing I wanted to do was, put my shoes on and go run with a group of people. So I have always been an early morning runner. And I just found that the run clubs, as great as it was from a social aspect, it just never really helped me elevate to the next level when it came to prepping for races.
And so you have run the whole sort of spectrum from the 5K to the ultramarathon. What's your preferred distance?
So I run on average, and this is going to sound crazy to a lot of people probably, but I run between 10 and 12 a day. So for me, and I try to do it 6 days a week. Again, no, that sounds a little crazy. I do some strength training in between, but my sweet spot, honestly, when I do a race is either going to be a half or a whole. I prefer the half marathon because I feel like I can still enjoy it. I can still, maybe PR. I can still push myself. Marathons, and I'm older now, and I've done them all. And so I feel like now that I've checked all the boxes, I find that I most enjoy the half marathon, just from a distance, a race perspective, all of the above. I love to do during the holidays. I'll do a 10K at Thanksgiving, stuff like that.
And so when you said you run 10 to 12, is that kilometers a day or miles per day?
Miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
in one go, or are you splitting it out? Like, 5 miles in the morning, 5 miles in the evening?
No, in one go. I put my shoes on in the morning early, and I'm covering between 10 and 12 in the mornings. Yeah.
6 days a week?
6 days a week. Yep.
Oh, now this is interesting. How's,
I know you've got a lot of questions, don't you? Most people do.
Well, the things that spring to my mind, well, a couple of things. It's like wear and tear, the number of trainers you must be going through.
Yes.
Just the recovery. You must be eating like huge amounts. So why?
Why?
Yeah. Why? Talk me through maybe some more of those specifics, because that's a chunky number to be doing daily.
Is. Yeah. So I find I get asked this a lot. And the more I get asked, the more I think, okay, the reasoning has to be, other than I have a problem. My husband says there's support groups for people like me. I don't have an obsessive compulsive or addictive personality behavior, but I find that, when I run 3 to 4, I don't feel like I'm doing enough. When I run 6 or 7, quite honestly, I just get annoyed. And so for me, it's kind of that once I've hit 10, then I think, okay, this is a good run. Like I've accomplished what I set out to do today. So there's that. And then, yes, I go through I actually order a pair of shoes a month, but I alternate between 2 different pairs of shoes. I always typically have 2, and I try to alternate between them. But the biggest question I do always get asked is injury and recovery. And knock on wood, I've been very, very fortunate, and I literally am knocking on wood. I have not had any major injuries. I think stretching is important, but I also don't overthink some of those things. I feel like you can't even look at social media these days without, there's this great new stretching program or training program, and everything is, you've got to do this to prevent this, or you've got to do this. Again, I know my body. I've been doing this for a really long time, and I always know when something is off. The other thing too is I feel like because I'm so conditioned now to running this distance that I probably live with a level of pain at all times that has just become the norm. So, I mean, I'm not saying I limp or I have injury or I wear braces or anything like that, but I think there's just a certain level of discomfort. Like when I get out of bed in the morning, it's there, but I've just gotten so used to it that it doesn't bother me. So I don't know. It all sounds a little crazy.
But also it doesn't, because actually the key thing she said is like, your body. And, for some people that would not work at all. But actually for other people, I love that, the 3 to 4, I'm not really doing it. 6 to 7, I'm annoyed.
Yeah.
I need to get to the 10. Then I feel good. And so, there's no judgment. This is you knowing your body. I think it's just fascinating. And I mean, the next couple of questions are, are you wearing a watch? Are you doing any heart rate training? Are you running a set speed? Like, are you quick? Are you slow? What's your pacing like? Or are you just very consistent?
Yeah. So I'm super consistent. I'm not going to say I'm the fastest. I'll be out there running, and again, as someone who launched an app to help keep women safe, you should never run the same route, but I do have a route that I love to run, and there are people who will pass me. So on average, my pacing is anywhere between 8 and 9, sometimes 9.5 if it's really hot and humid here in Florida in the middle of summer. So I definitely am not breaking any records when it comes to speed. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the thing, is just consistency. It's become such a habit for me now that when I have a day that maybe I don't feel well, or if it's storming, and quite honestly, like today, it's storming here in Florida. If it's lightning, I won't go, but I will still run in the rain. I actually love to run in the rain. I find it to be very therapeutic. But unless there's something, like there's a day that I'm off and I just can't do it or don't do it for some reason, I find that my body just doesn't adjust well. I mentally and physically just don't adjust well if I miss it. So it's really just a habit. It's become a consistent habit for me over the years.
And would you get the same benefits if you ran on side on a treadmill?
No, I do not like treadmills. Again, I'm not saying they're not good, but I prefer to be outside. To me, that's part of my mental wellness. Is I just love, even whether it's cold, hot, spring and fall in Florida is amazing. But I just think that being outside, the smells throughout the time of the year, like there's a certain smell in the fall that I love to look forward to every morning. There's kind of like that brisk chill in the air. And in the spring, the flowers, there's just something very, very therapeutic to me about being outside. And I also know too, from wearing my watch and having to do training on a treadmill when I travel, is that my VO2 max and my stats, everything is just better when I'm outside. I think that the uncertainty of terrain trains our heart better, trains our muscles better, trains our lungs better. And that's all proven. If I have to get on a treadmill, honestly, I will probably get on an elliptical before I'll get on a treadmill.
So I'd really love to delve into like your morning routine and like really get into the specifics. Take me through, what time is the alarm going off? Are you eating? Are you drinking? Do you have your clothes laid out? Do you sleep in your clothes? I'm really, really fascinated, and I'd love to get into those types of details. So like your very specific sort of morning routine when it comes to running these distances every day.
Yeah. So I am a creature of habit. Obviously, we've discussed that, but, I get up between 4 and 4:30 in the morning. I am very routine about this. I'm a fasting runner, so I do not eat. Again, something else people think is crazy. I drink coffee. So I have a cup of coffee in the morning, sometimes with protein in it. And I sit, and I'm very methodical about this. I have some reading I like to do. I like to get caught up. I have a book of devotionals I typically like to read. And I like to do this in the morning when it's still dark, because for me, that is really how I start my day. I have a golden retriever that is my sidekick, and she gets up with me every morning. She lays with me while I do all of these things. Normally that takes me about 30 minutes. And then I do have my clothes laid out, ready to go from the night before. I throw my clothes on quietly because everyone's still sleeping at home. And then I take off. I put on my watch. I do carry a mace. I'm methodical about that. And I wear one headphone, not two. And I take off and I go. And so after my run is complete, I don't typically eat right away. I wait a little while. I come home from my run. Sometimes I'll make a protein shake and get my shower and get ready for the day. And then, yeah, I go from there.
So what time do you leave for your run, and what time do you come back?
I typically leave around 5 a.m. I try to it's normally 2 hours. I'm normally gone for about 2 hours. Again, if I know I have super early mornings, I leave earlier, just because for me, I've got to get that in. It has become such a habit that when I don't do it, it seems to just skew the rest of my day. Other than my one day a week that I give myself, which normally is Sundays, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a Tuesday if I've got cases or, something's going on. Sometimes it's a Thursday. It just depends on what my week looks like. But I am one of those crazy runners. I know a lot of people say this, where I will literally plan my day around my run. And that has to happen first. And then everything else kind of falls into place.
Do you suffer from fatigue or anemia or anything like that?
So I do get my blood checked pretty frequently for that reason. I did a ultra back in 2016. And when I completed that race, I felt terrible. But even after the typical recovery time, I just wasn't shaking it and actually ended up in the ER with chest pains. And so I was admitted into the hospital. They did a heart cath on me and determined that everything was amazing, perfect, looked great. But the heart doctor told me, he was like, with you running this kind of distance, you have to at least see me once every 6 months, once every 8 months, but you've got to commit to making this a regular part of your routine, which drove me insane because I'm like, how can I be an ultra marathon runner and need to see a heart doctor? But, dehydration, deficiency in vitamins, minerals, all those things can affect your heart and, your valves when you're using that much oxygen, even though your heart might be in great condition. Obviously, let's think about it. You're taxing the oxygen level to your heart and your blood flow. So I do that. I see a heart doctor on a regular basis, probably now once a year, but I make sure that I check all my levels and then I just try to make sure I stay, not depleted, but efficient in everything. And then I also do multivitamins and then a lot of protein shakes with different supplements and stuff.
You run at 5 a.m. in the morning, which, oh God, I mean, I'm just not a morning person. I think I was recently on a Camino and I think the earliest I left was like 6:30 and it was pitch black and I was like getting a bit nervous, a little bit apprehensive because I was like, am I seeing shadows? Like, what is that? Oh my God, there's a dog barking. One of the amazing things that you have created, well, actually, would you like to share more about what you have created, what you are the founder of?
I mean, you can imagine, like you just said, you hit on a lot of things that I think most women experience on a daily basis, which is fear. Whether we're going for a run, a walk, or we're just going to our car, I think women have this innate sense and these thought bubbles that float around us at all times. What time is it? Is it dark? Where am I going? Am I safe? What do I have? How do I get away? I mean, there's just all these things that we consistently always have to think about. To say that I don't feel those things at 5 o'clock in the morning, even consistently doing it every single day, that's probably the one thing that is top of mind for me most often. It's not how fast I'm going or how far I'm going or what my route is. It's, am I safe? What's around me? Did I hear that noise? Or like you said, did I see a shadow? And in the course of my time, I've been harassed countless numbers of times, the usual horn honk or crude comment or unwanted advances, but I've actually been assaulted twice. There is a pretty large statistic of women who, once going through assault, stop doing the activity altogether. And after my first assault, I did. But once I started feeling comfortable and wanted to run again, I realized then that I needed that in my life, not just for my physical well-being, but also it helped me to overcome the trauma that had occurred. And so I started back running. And when it happened a second time, then I just got mad. And I thought, why? I let my husband know where I am. He can see me on a map. So I'm sharing location. I'm carrying a mace. I'm doing all the things as women were supposed to do. And then I got really angry when I was told, well, but you shouldn't be doing it at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, hey, guess what? That's the only time I have. I don't have the luxury of going at, 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock. And oh, by the way, in Florida, nobody runs at 10 o'clock because it's too hot. I got mad and I decided that there had to be kind of a more proactive approach. And I started looking around. I didn't really see anything other than you can join a run club. You can maybe hire a running coach to go with you, which is extremely expensive if you're doing that on a regular basis. Social media meetups, but the thing that scared me about that is, so I'm going to post that I'm going to go for a run at 5 a.m. and just meet up with some stranger that I have no idea who they are. And there's no way of finding out whether or not they have bad intent. And then, the other option, gym, which for me is not an option. Again, I don't see myself running on a treadmill for that long or doing it alone. So I really started realizing as women, the only options we have don't fit for everybody. So I created Running Mate as a result of this, which is a real-time on-demand app. and we are there to ensure safety for women who want to run outdoors. Basically, what we do is we match verified safe mates with runners when the runner is ready to go. So I always tell people, think of us like Uber for runners. We've all ridden in an Uber. We all know how that works. You open the app, you see the car in the area, and then the car finds your location and the driver comes to you. So that's a lot like what we do. We're real time. So if say a woman was traveling in a city she didn't know and she wanted to go for a run at 5 a.m., she can open the app after she's created her profile. She can look and see what mates are available in the area. And she actually has the power of selecting the mate she wants to run with. So unlike Uber, where you just get what you get, with us, we show you all the mates that are available in your area. You can read their profile and then you can select who you want to run with, which is super important for quite a few reasons. One, you know who you're running with. Two, you can read their profile and there might be something like, say you are training for a race or you are, looking for a running coach. You can read the profile of the mate and see if anything that they have in their bio matches with something that fits with you. And then you get to select that mate. So you have the power of choosing who you run with. And the other thing that the runner controls at all times is their pace, their distance, and whether or not they're going to want to wear headphones, which sounds a little funny, but it just basically is an indicator to the mate that this person probably doesn't want to talk. They literally just need a running buddy to be there for safety. But the runner always controls the pace and the distance by choosing that when they set the run up in each individual run. And then the mate comes to the runner. When the run is complete, the mate or the runner can leave a tip or review and everybody pretty much goes on their way.
How did you develop this idea and create an app from it? Like, how long has it taken you to create this?
Yeah, so that's been the fun part and the stressful part. So I have no experience in tech, which I find that a lot of people, especially females in tech, don't have a lot of background experience unless maybe they come from, specifically from working within the tech community. But it's taken us 3 years. I found my developer in 2021. We started working on this project in 2021 and we launched April 24th of this year officially. So when I say we launched, we've been beta testing since January of this year in different cities. So we are currently only launching in 3 very specific cities just so that we can make sure that we're launching in the proper way within each city that we're targeting. And by building our mate channel is the one piece that has to happen within these cities, because if you were to want to use the app and there were no mates available, then obviously it's not serving its purpose. So I've been very strategic and almost bullish about that, is making sure that we are onboarding not only enough mates, but the right mates to run with people. Because one thing I do hear consistently, specifically from women, is we would love to have someone run with us. And there are stats out there that actually 69% of women prefer to run with somebody. The problem is it's finding that right somebody. And I think we've all been there. We might find a friend or a family member or a neighbor down the street, and it starts off great, but then somebody doesn't show up one day, or someone decides, I don't want to run anymore. And now that person doesn't have someone to run with. So not everyone has a great support structure. And if they do have that at home, that's amazing. But then when they travel, they don't have it. So is their choice to just not run at all? Or would they be willing to use a service that had someone that could just tag along with them on their daily run? So we've been literally working on this and creating, what we consider to be the best user model that we could launch with based on all the data that we collected from going to market. And we've just recently launched.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a hell of a project. I mean, and just amazing, because also there'll be women as well. Like, I definitely felt this when I run with other people, which has been a very long time since I've been running with other people, but it's like, I don't want to hold them back. And I don't want, so, and I know that people will have those fears, but then, so that's one end of the spectrum where you're just like, oh my God, I'm too slow a runner. I'm just like jogging almost, like they're not going to want to run with me. The second thing is almost the other end of the spectrum, where it's like, they want to go faster. They want got a bit of pace. They're training for something, and to try and find that connection can be really, really difficult. But I love what you said about how like you can almost make sure that the pace is agreed on, the distance, if you want to wear headphones or not, or if you want to, chit chat or whatnot. And especially for women, if they're traveling and going to different cities or different places where they don't know the area, don't know the route, like how awesome is it to find a running mate who knows the area? It's like, oh yeah, this is a really beautiful route. This is a 6-miler, a 10-miler, whatever it may be. And with the app, that's not the only thing that you are doing to help to end the violence against women when they're out running, and you just mentioned a couple of the examples, from catcalling to inappropriate comments, to assault, to unwanted attention, to, fortunately in the UK, and probably in America as well, to murder. You have created a summit, Female Runners Safety Summit. Would you like to share more about that and what's involved in it, what the plans are, what the mission is, and what you're doing in that space?
Yeah, I would love to. I want to go back to something real quick that you said, if that's okay. And it was your experience and your thoughts. And this honestly is the core of why Running Mate has been created the way that it has, is because I thought I was alone in thinking that I feel judgment when going for a run with other people, which honestly is one of the reasons why I shied away from run clubs, besides the fact that they never ran when I needed to. No matter how many times I went, there was always this knot in my stomach of, okay, who am I going to run with today? Like, is there going to be somebody I can keep up with? Or is there going to be someone that can keep up with me? And then there's that social piece that happens afterwards, and you feel guilty if you don't do it, because you've got to go to work, or you've got to, get home and take care of, whatever the case may be. And I found that it became so much more stressful, and I wasn't actually enjoying my run like I did when I was alone. And so I was willing to take the risk of just being alone instead of going through all of that, so that I could ensure that I enjoyed my exercise. And the more women I talked to when we were beta testing and doing market validation, the more women shared this exact same sentiment: is I'm willing to take the risk to go alone because I don't have to worry about anybody. I don't have to worry about whether I'm going fast enough. I don't have to worry about if they're going fast enough. And then there's that weird, do we need to talk? I don't really want to talk. I don't just want to run. I want to put my headphones in. I don't really want to have conversation, All those things came into consideration when building this app, which is why it was super important for me to make sure that when the run is created on each individual basis, that the runner has a toggle switch that says how fast they're going and how far they're going on that particular run. Because today might be a 10-minute mile pace and tomorrow might be an 8. So that doesn't mean consistently maybe that you want to run the same pace. And so when you see those mates on the platform, their pace and everything is listed as their preferred pace. So you obviously, number one, wouldn't select that mate if it wasn't going to be a pace. But number two, you're paying for the service. And so there was almost like this switch that flipped with women when we interviewed them about, how do you feel about the fact that you're paying for this and you want them to run at your pace? And there was almost like this calmness that came over of, you know what, you're right, I'm paying for this. So if they don't want to run a 10-minute mile pace, then don't accept the run. That was kind of the sudden switch that occurred. And other caveat that I didn't mention is the mates get paid a flat rate off of each run. So that incentivizes the mate to run at the pace that the runner is paying them for, because then the runner can leave a review at the end. And the more reviews they get in the higher bracket, then the higher they move up as well in the selection process. So I just wanted to go back to that, but I definitely want to talk about the summit. So through the course of all of this, I realized again that it's a bigger problem than I had initially set out to fix. And there are a lot of other companies out there that have the same mission we have. And the Female Runner Safety Summit was formed to try to bring more awareness to the need for safety for women when exercising, whether it be running, walking, really just anything, walking to your car, even, in a parking garage. There just needs to be more awareness that is brought to the forefront, and not just when something happens and it's on the news. If a woman is assaulted or murdered, that seems to be the only time we talk about it. So the mission of the summit is to help bring awareness to the violence against women and to also try to start to bring an end to it. I would love to say we could completely end it 100%, but I also try to be realistic and realize that that may not happen in my lifetime. But I have a daughter, and I hope that in the course of what I'm doing and what the summit is doing is going to help make it a safer world for her as she's becoming a woman herself. And what we've done is these are all companies with the same mission, which is female runner safety or runner safety. We've got a company that does self-defense for women specifically. And I never really thought that was a big deal. But the more I learned, I realized that a lot of times when we take self-defense courses, they're taught by men, and that's great, but they tend to be moves or maneuvers that as women aren't natural for us. And so we might not actually be able to utilize them when we need them most if we're not practicing them on a consistent basis. So we were very specific about trying to find a group that focused on women's natural innate abilities when defending themselves. We have a company that does, mace and some other things from a safety perspective to protect themselves. Then we have a company that is a clothing line, women's apparel that allows you to be able to store weapons, whether it be a mace or a whistle or, whatever it is you might want to carry when you're running. They have specific pockets for things like that so that you can conceal it, but still have it with you. So all of us have the mission of bringing awareness, and we've joined together as one entity. And we go around and speak and exhibit at whether it's race events or universities. We do speaker panels, education seminars to just, again, keep it in the forefront and make people aware that we need to be making this an issue for women 365 days a year, not just when it's in the headlines.
What does the expansion of the app look like? Because, you mentioned you're in 3 cities at the moment. Are there plans to take it international, to take it global?
Yes. For sure. So we are definitely focusing on large major metropolitan cities first. And then our goal to go global, because statistically we can do more globally in Europe than we can in the US, to be quite honest. When you look at the numbers statistically, there is more violence against women abroad than in the US. Not to say that the numbers in the US aren't high, but our goal is within a year, we want to be able to offer this app worldwide so that any woman anywhere can download the app and go for a run safely. That does require, obviously a lot of strategy and making sure that the strategies we've done within the existing cities work, and then obviously tweaking it for regulations and things like that when we go abroad. And having the one thing that is consistent in every city is having those mates available in real time. You do have the ability to schedule on our app in advance, but that real time piece is really important to us. And so we have an algorithm of how many mates we need in a market based on the population of the city, and having that in place before we say, okay, everybody just go download. That's really important to us because that also gives credibility to what we are really trying to do. I'm not just out there trying to get people to download an app and make a ton of money. We are genuinely trying to provide a safer alternative for women. And if as frustrating as it is for me that it might take a little bit longer, we want to make sure we do it so that it's actually providing the value that we set out to do.
I can honestly see why you have to run for 2 hours a day, because you're working a full-time job, you're developing an app, you're, trying to make big changes, which I really, really appreciate. There must be a hell of a lot of moving parts and decisions and strategy and actually things that you just need to think about. So actually, I can see why running 3 or 4 miles a day just isn't enough, and you've got to hit the 10 miler, because you probably need that 2 hours a day just for your mental health, meditate, to get to that meditation, that awareness, but also quality, thinking time when you're out running. This is incredible. I love the fact that you're so proactive and, trying to make a difference and actually getting out there and doing something to help end this violence against female runners. Where can people find more information about you? Where can they find more information about the app? Where are you most active on social media?
So from a running mate perspective, we are most active on Instagram. At Get Running Mate is a consistent handle for us, Facebook and Instagram. And also our website is getrunningmate.com. So people can find us. The best way to sign up is going to be on our website. You can download the app now, which it's just Running Mate is the app on the App Store. We currently are not on Android, but that's in the works right now. So hopefully that will be soon. But all app users, iOS users can download the app now. And we're over communicating with people just again, because we want to make sure we're providing a service that's of value. So we do communicate a lot via Instagram, social media. And then on our website, you have the ability to actually submit submission forms if you're interested in signing up to be a mate or a runner. And we encourage people to do that because that's also helping guide us on which markets we're going to next. So what we think might be a good strategy city might turn out not to be the strategy that we're hitting next, because we have more users. Like, for example, recently we've had a lot of people submitting forms from New York, and New York was probably maybe a couple of months down the road for us, but it's looking like it's moving up on the list faster. Not that we can't bring value there, but we just had other cities we thought that we would hit first. But so that's kind of how we're determining, honestly, our strategy of where we're going next. Me personally, people can find me on LinkedIn. It's just Dena Lewis on LinkedIn is the best way to find me. It's funny. I had someone say the other day, they're like, I've never met a founder who actually responded to email. And I try to, because again, this does take up a lot of my time and a lot of resources, funds, effort, everything. But I'm truly not making a difference if I don't talk to people and I don't find out how we can help make a difference. So I try to at least read every single email and respond if possible. So if people even want to reach out to me via LinkedIn and leave me a message, if I can respond to that, I'm happy to. But I've got a great team that also vets a lot of our social media that comes in our DMs, and they always reach out to me if they think, hey, is this something we need to look into further? And 9 times out of 10, I'm the one that reaches out. So, so we just try to be as front and center and approachable as possible.
Fantastic. And Dena, I'd love for you to have final words of wisdom, final words of advice for other women out there who do want to run, who do want to be safe while running. What advice would you like to share? But please don't say, just do it. Any other advice?
Yeah, no. Listen, I'm going to say this. I think it would be very hard to find a woman who has not had a story. And, those stories are what drive me. But to all of those women out there, don't be afraid to share. Don't be afraid. I didn't share my first assault with anybody for a couple of days, and I only shared it after a few days because the man showed up on my doorstep. Otherwise, I don't know how long I would have carried that. And I also realized after this happened that a lot of women don't share their stories because of, shame or fear or whatever it might be. But for anyone who has been through this and experienced it, please know there are other women out there who have been through other stories of their own. I never say similar because every story is different. Please share it. Please talk to someone. Get help. It's okay. It's not okay that it has happened, but you didn't do anything to ask for it. So get help because it's the only way you can get through it and hopefully continue running because again, mentally running does things for us with endorphins that very few exercises can provide. And so I just don't want to see women stop doing it if it's something they love and they're passionate about. And also, you don't have to be the fastest and the best. Just get out there and do it. Whatever your pace is and whatever you're comfortable with is the best pace and the best comfort there can be. Is just get out there and do it. Like you just have to love what you do doing it. And that's all that should matter. It shouldn't be about beating a record or anything else. I mean, we're all competitive, but it should just be doing it for all the right reasons and love it every single day that you're doing it.
The female rage that he turned upon you. What the actual? Oh my God.
Yeah. After 3 days, he showed up at my house. Yeah. So I honestly didn't know how long he had been because the assault occurred about a mile from my house. And so he obviously knew where I lived and I don't know how long he had known that, but yeah, that was probably the trigger for me that the assault was one. And then I almost felt like I was violated again when he showed up on my doorstep. So yeah, it was quite the scenario to get through, but I got through it. That's the important part. I got through it. I beat it, and I'm on the other side. And honestly, I would have never created Running Mate had that not happened. So, I try to look at it now from, I was put here for a reason that happened. I'm not saying it was meant to happen, but it happened because there was a purpose that came from it. And that is this app that hopefully is going to at least, help women stay safe, maybe deter someone from doing it, and taking one potential victim off the table for them because they're with somebody instead of alone. So,
Phil, by the way, you don't have to answer this question. You don't have to discuss it, but is he in jail now?
No, actually. And I don't mind you asking because, I didn't talk about it, publicly for actually until I did a podcast after creating Running Mate. I had previously talked about some of the follows that I had that were extremely scary and close calls, but I never actually talked about this first assault until quite recently. But he is not in jail. Part of the reason for that is because I did not report it when it happened. And, again, for when I said what I said a while ago about women reporting, we all have our reasons. For me, I was in such shock and disbelief that it occurred that I was trying to process it. And I didn't even tell my husband when he came home from work that day. But I also was dealing with something else. And I don't want to overshare, but when he assaulted me, he bruised me in parts of my body that I knew if I filed, if I went to the police, that I would have to probably expose that for evidence. And that was not an option for me. I was like, no, I've already been assaulted. I don't want to have to go through this again, basically. So I chose not to report it. And so when he showed up on my doorstep a few days later, I screamed. My husband came running downstairs. We did call the police. They showed up. He had run, but they found him. They actually found him in my backyard. So they did arrest him. However, because there was never an initial report, they were just able to arrest him for trespassing. And he was out of jail a few days after that.
Were you able to get like a restraining order against him?
No, he was a homeless person, so he didn't have really a lot of identity to be able to go on. I mean, I did file a report with the police, and they kept an eye on things in the area, but I stopped running. So, and the really sad part is that even when I would go to get in my car was always in the garage, and I would always get in the car, get the kids in the car, start the car, and then open the garage door before I pulled out of my driveway. And that was how I lived for quite a while until we moved away from that area. And we moved just due to job relocation. But once we moved away is when I started to finally start feeling safe again and be able to sleep at night, so to speak, because I just obviously was always on alert. And especially with my kids were very young at the time. So that was also a big challenge for me, was being able to take them outside to go play. I always made sure I had a friend or a neighbor with me when we went outside. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I share not to make it about me. I share to hopefully let other women hear the story and realize that, again, that they're not alone, and that there are challenges and struggles, and that there are resources to get help and to move through it, to get to the other side.
And would you like to share some of those resources, or what helped you to move through to the other side?
Yeah. I mean, I was obviously in denial for a while, and then I thought talking to my best friend was an option. And then realized very quickly that she moved on and thought I should move on too. And not to say that I shouldn't. I also found myself taking that sort of like PTSD and turning it towards my kids, meaning that I was getting very paranoid about even taking them to school. Like I didn't want to leave them because I thought something was going to happen. So I realized I needed to probably get counseling, and I did. I went to therapy. That was a game changer for me. I was able to work through the actual PTSD and the trauma and the event itself, and again, start seeing the other side of where things would go in life from there. But then I did not become this advocate or this person that wanted to help other people right away. I continued to do a lot of self-care. I continued to just focus on my family and just try to get through one day at a time. I did get exercise in other ways, even though I wasn't running. I found that to be probably the second most beneficial to the therapy. And that involved, I'd go to a lot of yoga classes and Pilates classes and just different things that could get the endorphins moving in other ways. I found that for me, that is when that energy and that level of mental stability was most present, was when I was exercising, and getting the movement going. And then as time progressed, I started to, reach out to other groups and meet other women who'd been through the same thing. The one thing I will say is I didn't allow that to become who I was. I didn't allow that to define me or become my identity. And I felt, and this is not for everyone, but I felt that being in those groups sometimes held me back almost, because that's all they talked about. And they didn't talk really about life. And so I personally had to kind of stop doing that after a while, because I did want to move on. I didn't want it to be the defining moment of my life. And, then eventually what ultimately ended up happening and helping was time. And when I got back to running, I started to feel a sense of empowerment again when I started running again. And that for me, ultimately, I think was the turning point, which is why when it happened a second time, I was really angry because I was like, no, this is not going to happen again. Someone's not taking this from me again. Not to say there wasn't fear and a bit of, I did have a hard stop for a little while on the second event as well, but it wasn't as long, and it wasn't as traumatic either as the first event, which I think is probably why it helped me move through it faster. And then just talking to other women, like I said, building this app has probably been one of the most therapeutic things, is realizing there are other women out there and not just trying to help them, but they help me. Every time I go for a run with someone and they tell me their story, it's actually helpful for me to know that there's other women that have gone through this, and that we all need advocacy and we all need change.
Absolutely. Dena, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate what you've shared and how you've shared, and also the incredible work that you're doing with Running Mate to make a difference. And I'm just really excited to see where the project goes, and best of luck with all of the expansion plans.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this and letting me talk about it and bring awareness, because that's what we're all about, is just trying to keep women safe.
Hey Tribe, I really hope you enjoyed that episode with Dena. Everything that we have talked about today will be available in the show notes at toughgirlchallenges.com. So please do go and check it out. Go and visit getrunningmate.com to find out more about Running Mate. So currently only in America in certain cities, but I'm sure it will grow and expand, and you can sign up to make sure that you receive news and updates on their website, getrunningmate.com. 1st of October, how is everyone doing? Have you set your goals and your intentions for the month ahead, for the next couple of months until the end of 2025? Just to give you a mini update of me and where I'm up to. I'm back at home, and I'm going to be home for the next couple of months, just sorting out my health and fitness, getting back on track with my strength training, sorting out my ankle mobility. My plan is to build bulletproof ankles. That is the plan. That is the goal. So I'll be doing a lot of strength and conditioning, but also a lot of mobility and the sort of the micro movements. I am also sorting out my tooth as well, with my little tooth infection, bacterial infection that I had a couple of weeks ago while I was out on the Southwest Coast Path. So just having root canal done on that. Otherwise, I'm going to be at home focusing on the podcast, focusing on editing the vlogs. There's going to be new vlogs coming out for the Tiara Roa Trail. Those vlogs will start coming out at the beginning of November, and I'll also be editing and pre-loading the Southwest Coast Path vlogs, which will be coming out next year. So the New Zealand vlogs are going to be coming out basically as though I was doing the trail, but just like a year later. So at the moment, I think it's either going to be once a week or twice a week, maybe every Wednesday or every Friday. But if you haven't visited the Tough Girl YouTube channel and you're wondering what I'm talking about, then please do go and visit Tough Girl Challenges on YouTube. On the Tough Girl YouTube channel, basically there are vlogs from all of my different adventures and challenges. So that goes from walking the Wales Coast Path to the Appalachian Trail. There are videos on the Pacific Coast Highway. There There is a short, if you just want a short glimpse of things, there's a short film I did of through hiking the Appalachian Trail in 100 days. That is about 6 minutes long. Some of my most popular videos are from wild swimming in Loch Ness. 22,000 people have watched me doing that. 19,000 people have watched me twisting my ankle as I start crying alone on the Appalachian Trail. There's also the Camino Francis as well. There's not a huge amount of vlogs from the Marathon des Sables. There's just a couple of like planning and preparation ones available for that. I've done hiking the Cathedral Ranges, the Southern Circuit, Wells Cave and Sugarloaf Peak. That was done in Australia. If you also want to watch sort of like more of like a film type thing, so it's not different vlogs, I've done sort of walking the Camino Primitivo, and it's about an hour long. So there's Camino Primitivo, there is the Isle of Man Coastal Path, there is the Coast to Coast, there's Offers Dyke. So yes, lots of films. So you can see, if you're thinking of taking on adventure or challenge, you're not quite sure what the realities are like, then you can watch my vlogs and see the realities. I do share a lot, probably share too much. But yes, new vlogs coming out in November. The YouTube channel's been quite quiet for the past couple of months. I've only really shared the Cotswold Way because I just haven't had time to edit vlogs. If you are an editor and you are thinking, I really enjoy editing, that is my passion, I would love to get involved and help me edit some of my video content, then please do reach out. Send me an email, sarah@toughgirlchallenges.com. I'd love to hear from you. Any help would be appreciated, because when I'm at home, I do just spend my time editing. It's like, what do you do when you're not hiking, Sarah? I edit podcasts and I edit videos, roughly about 8 hours, sometimes longer. Depends how quick and efficient I get when I get into flow. Thank you again for listening. We have new episodes coming out every Tuesday, with a couple of bonus episodes on a Thursday. I was at the Armchair Adventure Festival earlier on this year. I've got 2 live episodes. They're going to be coming out at the beginning of November. That was with Tiffany Coates and Dena Lewis. On the 8th of October, we're going to be speaking to Amanda Harris, who's going to be sharing more about adaptive cycling and fundraising. She's going to be sharing more about her life after dealing with a life-changing spinal cord injury, and how her love for cycling was rekindled when she was gifted a recumbent bike. She shares more about her journey of completing the Wales Coast Path, which she does using a trike, a wheelchair, and occasionally walking with crutches. So an absolutely fascinating episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Tough Girl podcast. There's over 700 episodes for you to listen to. Please visit toughgirlchallenges.com to find out more about the incredible women who've been on the podcast to share more about their story. If you would like to pay it forward, then please do visit don't visit the visit the website. Obviously, there are links on the website to Patreon, but if you visit www.patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast, you can sign up as a patron, a monthly amount, a yearly amount, in all currencies, whatever amount that you can afford. If you can afford to support, it would mean a lot. It would be super, super beneficial and would really help me with growing the podcast and keeping the podcast going. If you are not in a position to support financially, totally understand, no worries. What would be amazing instead, if you could share it on social media, if you could tell one friend about the Tough Girl podcast, that would make the world of difference and really would help for more women to become aware of the Tough Girl podcast, the incredible women who are out there doing these adventures and challenges and who are sharing their top tips and advice to motivate and inspire you to go after your own dreams and goals. All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.